Welcome, Arapahoe Philharmonic fans, to another installment of our Music Connect series. Tonight, I'm very excited to share with you a performance we did of Edward Elgar's Enigma Variations. This is a common theme and variations form, which is essentially a theme played by any instrument, and over the course of the piece, variations are played, whether they be slow or fast, more notes or less notes, minor or major keys. In this particular theme and variations, Elgar depicted his friends within. So he depicted many of the people in his life, some of his students who he taught music to. He depicted his wife. He depicted his best friend. He depicted a house, and he even depicted a dog in one of these variations. Why is it called Enigma? Well, in this piece, Elgar set down one of the greatest and most unsolvable, perhaps, musical mysteries in history. He said, "The enigma I will not explain. Its darker saying must be left unguessed." And most importantly, he said, through and over the entire set of variations, a larger theme goes but is not played. So the principal theme never appears. So it's basically conjecture, and people have come up with all sorts of different theories as to what exactly the theme is. I would encourage you listening tonight, if you're listening to the theme and you hear some of the variations and you recognize the melody or you have an idea, please share with us on chat in the comment section below. And also, if you have any questions about some of the music that's being played or any of the characters pictured within, please feel free to let me know. I will be available on chat. And without further ado, let's get into the music. So first we're going to play the theme. And then, of course, the first variation is no one else but Elgar's wife, Alice. Here it is in the Arapahoe Philharmonic. The second variation is based on a pianist, Hugh David Stewart Powell, with whom Elgar would play piano trios. And this is supposed to depict the pianist warming up and playing the chromatics on the piano. The third variation is a friend of Elgar's who's an amateur actor, Richard Baxter Townshend, a writer and an actor. And he described his low voice flying off occasionally into the soprano timbre. In this, you can also hear the pizzicato when the strings pluck their instruments of Richard's bicycle bell as he rode through town. And in the middle of this movement, you hear a bassoon, da di da da di da da di da da. It's the growing grumpiness, which is supposed to be the composer. The fourth variation is a guy named William Meath Baker, who was a country squire with an abrupt manner, and he always had the tendency to slam the door shut on his way out. See if you can hear that. The next variation, number 5, RPA, is Richard Penrose Arnold, who was a music lover and a pianist whose way of playing evaded difficulties, but in a mysterious way suggested the deeper meaning of the music. His very serious conversation was occasionally broken off by witty remarks, which you will hear in the music. The sixth variation features a violist friend of Elgar's, Isabel Fitton. And in this variation, Isabel is portrayed by our principal, Heidi Snyder. Here it is. The seventh variation is an architect named Arthur Troy Griffith, who Elgar unsuccessfully tried to teach the piano to. His lack of ability to play the rhythms correctly is portrayed in this vulgar and very abruptly energetic movement of frustration. The eighth variation is Winifred Norbury. This variation actually is the only variation not to feature and depict a person. This pictures her house, which is called Sherridge. It's an 18th century house. And in this variation, you also hear Miss Norbury's characteristic laugh with a trill in the oboe, laughed by Virginia Lindbergh, our principal. The ninth variation is quite possibly the most popular variation in the history of variations in music. It's called Nimrod, and it is written in tribute to Elgar's friend August Jaeger, who also happened to be his publisher. But they would have these deep fireside chats. It is said that Elgar, as a person, never really revealed his soul on the outside in company, even to his friends, and his soul was only revealed through his music. And I think this music and this conversation that Elgar is portraying, these late night talks by the fireside, many about music and about life, reflects Elgar's deep friendship and possibly more with August Jaeger. Of this variation, Elgar says, I have omitted your outside manner and have only seen good, honest, lovable soul in the middle, which is you. So here is Elgar's Nimrod variation. The 10th variation is Dorabella, named after a younger friend of Elgar's named Dora Penny, and he got Dorabella from the character in Mozart's opera Così fan tutte. And the funny thing about this variation is he portrays the way Dora speaks in the stutter. Dee-da-dum, dee-da-dum, bee, 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 bee. So anytime the woodwinds utter the answer to the strings, you portray this stutter just a little bit. The 11th variation is George Robertson Sinclair, but it's the only variation which is representing an animal. This is Sinclair's dog, a bulldog named Dan. And if you listen to the music, it's describing exactly the dog, Dan, falling into the river, swimming upstream, scrambling to the bank, shaking the water off his fur, and letting out a loud and joyous bark. Here is Dan the bulldog. BGN is Basil G. Nevinson, an amateur cellist who was a very dear friend to Elgar, and his voice is portrayed by our principal, James Todd. He intended for this to be very mysterious and possibly unknown. Um, what is true is that he's quoting, and he actually puts quotation marks into the musical score. He's quoting from Mendelssohn's Calm Sea and Prosperous Voyage. So there's probably some kind of journey involved. And we know there's two ladies in this particular variation who could possibly be the subject of Elgar's later in life remembrances. One is Lady Mary Ligon, or another is Helen Jessie Weaver, who was Elgar's first love. So we don't know exactly which one it was, or if it even was one of these women, but we know that they both went on a voyage. And the beauty of this romanza, so romance, and Elgar is definitely talking about some kind of romantic love here, will probably still be unknown, but we're always free to speculate. We have one last variation, variation number 14, my favorite variation. But before we go into that, I just wanted to thank you all for joining us tonight. If you are able to donate, we can't do all of these programs without your support. So whether it's $5 a month or $10 a month or a one-time donation, there's some information below and after the video on how to donate exactly. All of your support is greatly appreciated, and we love putting on these programs, and we plan to continue bringing you these really awesome performances from the Arapahoe Philharmonic, and also performances from some of our musicians, some of our guest artists, and other great musicians in our community. So getting back into the finale of Elgar's Enigma Variations, this is actually Elgar himself. Edu is what his wife Alice nicknamed him, Edu, around the house. So this is Elgar's kind of testament. This is his remembrance, his portrayal of himself, as much as someone could portray themselves. And the most interesting thing about this last variation for me is we get some music from the beginning, from the first variation, which is representing Elgar's wife, Alice. And then, of course, we get music from the 9th variation, which, if you remember, is Elgar's best friend, Nimrod, or Jaeger. Nimrod, the mighty hunter from Genesis. Jaeger is hunter in German. So that music comes after Alice's music. And for some reason, Elgar also added a bunch of measures after this was published, just adding to the mystery and suspense and novelty of the entire variation set. But I think you'll agree that this music wraps up the entire previous 30 minutes and sets the piece of music and us on a course of endless and eternal speculation, uncertainty, but appreciation for this amazing music that Elgar created, regardless of what the actual theme is or what he intended it to be. Thank you for joining us.